Welcome back to the Snack Walls podcast. I'm Mike Roberts, your host, and we're here to talk about increasing and maintaining diversity in tech beyond the perks. While companies think they can lure people in with unlimited PTO and dogs in the office, we're here to talk about how you keep them. I'm going to throw it over to our special guest today. In a few sentences, can you tell us who you are and what it is that you do?
Hi, so my name is Ludo Antonov. I lead engineering at Lyft, more specifically the growth team and the driver and supply teams at Lyft. Previously, I've worked at Microsoft, Hulu, and Pinterest. I joined Pinterest before Hulu, where still when the company was pretty small, we're just about 100 employees and 15 million monthly active users. And I spent the next 7 years there. Growing, really the company to 300 million monthly active and almost 2,000 employees before I switched over to Lyft.
Awesome. So you got a little bit of experience being inside shops. That's good. So I'm hearing from some leaders in tech that finding diverse talent is a challenge. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, it's no surprise that, really across the board, tech companies have a lot of work to do. And I want to start by saying that there is a lot of very capable talent out there. And I think one of the big challenges that I personally want to see more on is the accountability among tech executives and founders. And I think that's really a critical step in terms of making sure that there is appropriate buy-in to prioritize diversity and inclusion. And that it's not just something that is a nice word, but it's really a long-term commitment. To growing a diverse team. The second thing that I think is really important is that, and a challenge is a lot of the tech companies are really biased to action, and so it's really this thing where it's there's a good idea and then it's just straight up jumping into execution mode. And I think with something like diversity and inclusion, we need to take a little bit more of a slow approach in terms of building the foundation. On which we can make sure that future decisions are well made. So that's something that I see as a challenge. Maybe third and final thing I'd say is that we haven't been really good around sharing best practices between companies. I've seen in previous companies some things that work really well are not obvious, and especially around apprenticeships that I've been just reflecting that if we actually were able to share more, more broadly some of these practices and more of these gotchas, I think we could have increased the rate at which we were able to get the diverse talent into the tech pool. But that sharing of practice is very ad hoc right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no central repository of best practices yet. So yeah. Maybe we'll get there. What do you think about the push within some organizations to remove the requirement for CS degrees for software engineering roles?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. To be honest, I think there's a few issues that that I think are really important there, right? One is that to your point, I think with the current requirements, really the interview process ends up being hiring within the same pool, right? The interview process is very much structured around CS, fundamentals. If you went to school with that, then you know how to solve these kind of problems. They're not particularly applicable. They give some signal, but they're not, they're not particularly applicable to the work that people end up doing day to day. And I do think it's actually very valuable to look at relaxing some of the requirements and looking for hire for just basically to hiring for fit as opposed to hiring for preset requirements that were really envisioned 15 years ago.
Sure. So, and I think a lot of times there's an assumption made that the only way to gain the skills of a CS degree is to go to a 4-year university, when the reality these days is some of those concepts about data structures and algorithms, they're available online, and you can take some great online courses from MIT and Stanford, very prestigious programs and you don't necessarily have to have, the full panacea of, well, we're going to start at microprocessor level and then work our way up through, the entire degree structure. So that being said, do you think an apprenticeship pattern would work for tech roles?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I am very big supporter of of apprenticeship models. Like at Pinterest, the growth team, actually my team, like started the first wave of apprentices, and the first year we did that. We had 4 apprentices. Over the next few years, we scaled it to a class of 32. I believe was the latest. Which is which is quite a bit. And I would say
That's
at
decent.
Lyft as well. This year we're committed to we actually just launched the apprenticeship applications. We have over 1,000 candidates, and we're looking at at making sure that we're fostering this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's awesome. We've got 9 apprentices as
Nice.
just a small organization. So I know 30 is big. 30 is huge. So
Yeah.
what about, what advice would you share with companies that are looking to retain diverse staff? So let's say you're able to get them into your organization. How do you keep them?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So I would say a few things. First of all, maybe I'll share like some things from, from I mean, I guess like both from previous companies as well as from Lyft. Um, one thing that's been really useful is like making sure that there's inclusion circles set up. Making sure that they're like the folks that are diverse have this support level, like quite a bit, inside the company. And I think it creates both like their ability to have a safe space to share some challenges, but also it is a nice body in terms of like executives to be able to attend and really connect with what are the top of mind issues for for these folks, and from there kind of devise a little bit of an action plan and follow through on it. I mean, again, like I'll go back to the original thing that I said, which is the commitment to to diversity is really important from an executive level. So showing that for directors, VPs, executives, making sure that this is largely and broadly communicated and it's not vague, it's very specific, is another thing. The third thing that I would say is, I mean, specifically some of the things that we are doing at Lyft is for every Black or Latin American employee that we have, we create basically a clear development plan with their manager, so that we can make sure that their personal growth is supported. And again, we're doing this to make sure that that we can support that talent in a much more visible fashion.
Absolutely. And I think with that support, it's easier for folks to thrive. So,
Yeah.
if companies really want people to stick around, then create an environment for them to do well, and they won't go anywhere else because the grass isn't going to be greener anywhere else than where you're at right now. So
and actually, one more thing that I'll add, like I forgot to mention this, but it's one of these very fascinating things that that I've heard. I attended Deaf Caller maybe a couple of years ago, and one of the insights that I got from there, it was actually from an engineering leader, I think it was from Square, was that there's this kind of invisible line around 30-35% diversity within a team, after which point the team becomes sustainably diverse going forward. And it's really interesting. Like you would think when you hire, right? Like if you have 2 teams that, if you have 2 teams and you have 2 diverse candidates, the natural, urge is to place 1 diverse candidate in each team, right? But then if you think about it actually from their perspective, then now they're the only diverse candidate in that team. They feel like, like a little bit less, together. And this actually, I think almost increases almost 30-40% their chances that they would thrift in the long term. Whereas if you actually try and reward the teams that are already going to be to the point of more diverse and getting them over the hump to where they're self-sustainably, perpetually diverse, it just creates this like much more of a movement forward. That I thought was actually a really great insight. I've seen it work both at Lyft, like as well as at Pinterest. It's something I try and do as well.
Yeah, I mean, now that you say it, it seems like it would make more sense, and it's definitely something that I'll keep in the back of my noggin as we start sort of creating some teams and dynamics. So I like that. That's a pretty good tip. So who is someone like yourself that you think you'd like to acknowledge as someone that should be invited to be on the podcast like this and talk about diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question, and I would say like I had the privilege to work with a number of really amazing partners and leaders. Both I've worked for and I've worked with, and I've been really lucky to actually learn from their experience. So when I was thinking about this, I thought, like a couple of people really stood up. Candice Morgan was definitely one. She led all of the diversity efforts at Pinterest, and I think she did like a really phenomenal job in terms of just establishing that culture within the company. Mackenday, who founded Def Color, is another person he's an engineer I used to work with in the past. And I think he's done, again, like a phenomenal job in terms of just creating, creating a really like a great space, for the community. So these would be the ones. Obviously, I think a lot of great leaders at Lyft as well, that have helped shape the culture here as well. There's a number of them here as well.
Okay, so shout out to the whole Lyft crew, as well as those other folks. We'll keep them on the radar and see if we can get them onto the program. So where can we find out more information about what you're doing over there at Lyft or anything else that you'd like to promote?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think we are careers.lyft.com. We're actually hiring quite a bit, and we're, especially for diverse talent, I love connecting with folks. I would say the other thing is I'm part of the Pay It Forward, I guess list.
Oh, yeah.
And I've met some wonderful people from there. So I guess this is more of an indirect way to also promote it. I think there's some great names there in terms of folks like myself that are just trying to spend some time, understand the community, and see what we can do to help.
Right. And so for those that aren't aware, Pay It Forward started, there was a wonderful woman that put together a list of volunteers that are willing to give some of their time and their expertise to share with people that may be underrepresented in the space, and give them an opportunity to get some mentorship, or if you're a mentee, that'd be a great opportunity for you to jump in there and get some help. So love the Pay It Forward list. So that was a good one. That was a great use of the interwebs that day. So awesome. So last and most important and most challenging question for some folks: what are you snacking on lately? What's your favorite snack?
Oh wow, this is that's a good one. What am I snacking on lately? I love chocolate. So I'm trying to stay away from it. But there's this particular kind of chocolate with raspberries. That's
with raspberries.
Yeah, and
that sounds really tasty.
And the unfortunate thing is, now that we're all in this COVID world, Instacart has made it way too easy for me to actually get that.
Disaster. They just ship you crates of it, right?
I mean, like we ended up like getting like 2-ish per week, and now we're just like, we need to kind of cut down on that.
Nice. That's a good one though. So thanks again. I appreciate you coming on the show. Where can we, if we're looking at a career in Lyft, what's the domain again?
Yeah, it's careers.lyft.com.
Careers.lyft.com. All right. Awesome. Thanks again for being on the program today. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. The San Diego Code School is a proud sponsor of the Snack Walls podcast. The San Diego Code School is leading companies to tech equity. The Tech-Enabled Apprenticeship Program is a venture whose heart is to do a lot of social good and do good work. You can help San Diego Code School secure funding for change by hiring developers, bringing a team in to relieve your backlog, or becoming a program sponsor. You can visit us on the web for more information at http://stcs.io.